Hello and welcome to the pre-lock edition of the CFB Super Show. I'm your host, Walter Waddell, aka Deuce85, and I'm coming to you live 8 a.m. in the morning, PST, of course, 11 a.m. on the East Coast for those of you who live on, non-covered wagon time. Good to see everybody. I'm very, very pleased. It's going to be a fun day. Let's pop up the ticker there. Before we get started, before we answer your questions and we talk about all the injury news that inevitably is going on now and will pop up throughout the next 45 minutes, we do have a code going on, Night Hoops. They're scrolling at the bottom of your screen, 50% off your first month, any subscription at FTN. That's FTN Daily or FTN Bets. We've got it all. If you already, you've had a sub before, maybe you just watch the shows, maybe you're kind of been, not really sure if you want to check it out. Now's a great time to do so. Getting that first month off 50% is just an amazing deal. It gives you a chance to see what the betting team is all about, gives you a chance to see what kind of content we provide on the DFS side. Obviously, we have slate breakdowns for everything from college sports to NFL to NBA. They just finished up MLB. There's a great team for the NHL. We have esports. We have trackers. We have optimizers. We have player pools. We have everything. Discord is huge. We post information there, late breaking news, all that stuff. I always say the sub is worth the Discord alone because of the communication that we provide there. There's also going to be, for the college side this year, some private private shows where they're going to be like pre-lock stuff for college basketball that you won't be able to see on the normal YouTube show. You'll have to be a member to see those. So a little bit of extras. Also going to be some potential minutes projections and other stuff that I'm working on. Just a lot of exciting stuff, man. A lot of exciting stuff. Chase says, couldn't imagine not living in the East Coast. Well, it's tough to imagine not having covered wagons. But I hope to find out what that's like someday. But yeah, it's tough. It is tough. What's really kind of sucks about it? It's not even the morning. Like, games are gonna start at 9 a.m. for me. It's not really that big a deal. I'll tell you what really sucks is having to work a normal job still. Really sucks. And having games start on the college basketball side at 4 p.m. For those of you guys over there, you get to finish your work day. You get a few hours to kind of settle in. Games starting at 7 o'clock. Like, what a dream. What a dream that would be to not have to be like, hey, this game started. I got to answer these questions. Oh, I also have to still work for another hour. And, I got this needy person that I can't get away from. But yeah, let me pull up Stat Broadcast right quick. That's the crappiest part, but I don't know. I like the West Coast, I guess. All right, so let's get into it. We have a lot of news to happen. There's a lot of questions popping up. Basically, the first thing I want to talk about, and this isn't the most important bit of news by any means, but it is to me. So we're going to talk about it. The kid, the D3 stud transfer to Oklahoma State, Leon Johnson. He was supposed to redshirt originally this year. Big time talent. He's older. He's not young by any means. The coaching staff absolutely loves him. They wanted him to redshirt so that he could refine his skills a little bit with his mechanics. Didn't really get a lot of coaching in D3. Even had a pretty interesting interview that I watched yesterday where, he kind of talked about his route running wasn't super crisp, but he could usually just muscle guys out for the ball and do what he wanted at the D3 level. Obviously, that doesn't happen at this level of football, although gets his real first bit of action. It was actually his fourth game played, but his first real bit of targets, and did turn in a 5-catch for 149-yard performance there against Cincinnati. Have to love this matchup against Oklahoma if he does play again. A lot of that's going to depend on the injury situation for Oklahoma State. We know obviously Stribling out. We don't even have to worry about that. But Jaden Bray missed time. Blaine Green, who missed time last week, and then Talin Chetron, who also missed time last week. So, 3 different receivers who had to sit out for Cincinnati. They really had no choice but to go with Leon Johnson, and he really delivered. I'm almost wondering at this stage of his career, like, does it even make sense to redshirt him? The season, you got like 4 or 5 games left, bowl games, whatever. Like, you might as well just play him, especially with the amount of injuries that have happened. Rashad Owens, has been taking a ton of targets, but defenses are kind of just keying in on him, and Johnson just gives them another element. So really looking at the artist formerly known as TweetDeck here on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. So it makes it a little harder now, but I have Leon Johnson search queries up everywhere. That is the first bit of news, because I have a lineup with and without two quarterbacks. I have a 4 running back lineup that really needs Johnson to play, and then I have a 2 quarterback lineup that doesn't necessarily need Johnson to play, but it would certainly help if he did. So that's the first part that I'm really interested in. There's some other injury news for later games that we might be able to talk about here in a minute, but for Clemson, Will Shipley, kind of as expected, he's been ruled out, getting a lot of questions, hey, Phil Maffa, or as Jake Kuchek typoed, Phil Madagascar. Is he going to be super chalky, 5.5 on DK? Like, that's a really good price, right? I'm not interested at all. If I lose to Phil Maffa today against Notre Dame, then so be it. I know he's coming off a really good game against NC State, and the NC State defense that's really quite good. He did score twice in that game, even though they didn't win, and it really was all Phil Maffa in that game. But if you look at the kind of body of work for him, it's not the type of runner that you're going to see be successful against the Irish. If Clemson's going to have any shot at all today, I think it's going to be through short yardage type passing, like our guy Jake Brenningstool. One thing about Maffa is he does catch passes, so potentially PPR work there for him to pan out. But the running back spot is just so important yet again today that I would just hate to burn one spot on Phil Maffa myself. So I'm not on him like others are. Jake Kearney, I'm just going to answer questions as we go. Do you like a FSU stack in the $20 GPP? I always like FSU stacks in any GPP. Obviously, every week I'm kind of just a broken record. Like, hey, Jordan Travis is the top GPP play, the most elite play that you can possibly get. Showed that against Wake Forest, almost 40 points at sub 10% ownership everywhere. We'll have a little bit more ownership this week, but 9K, it's still pretty tough. There's a lot of expensive running backs that we need to play. So Travis ownership probably still isn't going to be where it should be. Pittsburgh's defense on paper might look a little better than it is, but they're just getting clubbed. Travis is a very good play, obviously with Keon Coleman. Might get Wilson back. I'm kind of sour on Jaheim Bell. Not that he's not a very good play, but as his price rises, he's just not really extending his upside any. So yes, FSU stacks galore. And if you don't play Travis, there might be a really good opportunity for Trey Benson. All right. So Louisville news is the other bit of information, getting a ton of Jawar Jordan questions. He's the top running back of the slate. Why are you not so high on him? Well, I don't know. Again, there's a lot of running backs in this slate, and I just don't feel like Jordan is necessarily the best play. But we also get the fact that he's questionable / hasn't practiced. And now the latest that just dropped this very second is that he's going to try to play. But this is something that we've known. 2 offensive linemen for Louisville also hurting / questionable. One of them for sure is out from what I've read on message boards. So you're looking at, and Jamari Thrash, their top wideout, is out. So at Virginia Tech, I know a lot of you are saying you could get it at +10. I had a SGP. I'm just going to bounce around here. SGP for Virginia Tech, it was +9.5 and over 48.5. I know if you bet it single, you can get +10, but that Virginia Tech bet on its own looks really damn good right now with all those Louisville injuries. The total might suffer a bit, but I actually think the Hokies have a chance to score a bunch of points anyway, so I'm still on that. But no Thrash, half your O-line banged up / out. Jawar Jordan just, not practicing. This is a real rough spot. I have somebody asking who would be the WR play for Louisville. I guess Huggins Bruce. Huggins Bruce would be the Jake play. So, he's 3.9. He has upside. I personally like Kevin Coleman. I think he's a little bit more of a reliable option. He also doesn't have much upside, but at least we can count on him for a reception of 2. We can't always consider Huggins Bruce for that. It would be really interesting to see the rise of Joey Gatewood again, but I don't know if we can use that. But I think Huggins, Bruce, or Coleman if you really want to. But neither are very great plays, but I mean, they're under 4K. And if you need super value, I suppose it's definitely a doable thing. But I was really hoping that's actually good for us, good for me, because I was really hoping that Jordan, not that it would hurt subs, I don't want to hurt subs, but like not quite a late scratch, but like 5 minutes to lock, like Jordan is out and make people scramble. A lot of people asking me about Isaac Garendo, but he's just, I mean, at almost 7K, there's just seems like so much risk. And I know he's put up some big numbers, and I know Virginia Tech is a matchup that he should be able to do things against, but there's just a lot wrong with this Louisville team right now. As far as injuries. Also in that Virginia Tech game, there is an important injury to Bashal Tutin. If he were to be out, who's sitting there questionable, Malachi Thomas rises from the dead. He's only 4-5 sitting there at running back, had a pretty solid 13 carry, 87-yard performance against Syracuse last week. So he's a valuable type play that you can use for salary savings in your lineup as well. And this is just assuming that you're playing one or both of the underpriced JMU receivers. Like, I'm not going to waste too much time talking about Reggie Brown and Elijah Sarrett. Like, yes, just play both, and hope that you can fit the rest of what you want to fit into your lineups. I'm seeing some regression in the ownership on Marcus Carroll. I'm still extremely high on him. Now, it's not lost on me that JMU has, one of the best rushing defenses in the country. But it's also not lost on me that JMU hasn't faced any running backs really like the volume beast that is Marcus Carroll. And we can go through and look at some of the matchups that they've had. They face Marshall, for example. They face Marshall without their top player. Ethan Payne, 20 carries, 62 yards. Obviously, had they had Ali, that might have looked a little bit different. They faced Old Dominion most recently. Old Dominion, two different players on Old Dominion had 65 plus yards. So together, like Carroll, that's over 100, right? Against Georgia Southern, they did hold Jalen White to 50 yards. So I will give them a hand clap there. Against South Alabama, which is all about LaDamian Webb. He scored a touchdown, but they held him to 36 yards. So that's a golf clap there. They did get absolutely torched in the passing game, and LaDamian Webb did have 7 receptions for 24 yards, so somewhat salvaged his day there. Going up against a Utah State team that is really not very good. Devon Booth rushed for over 100 yards against this James Madison team. Also, the quarterback of Utah State threw for 400 yards. It's an important distinction to make that both of the secondaries in this JMU Georgia State game are awful, and that's where you can definitely defeat both of them. But I'm seeing a lot of people start to sway and pull away from that Carroll play. You can go back to the early part of the year against Troy as well. They did a nice job containing Kamani Vidal, who is one of the best running backs in all the country now. So it's definitely a spot that is scaring people away. I'm sticking with it. This is one of those plays where I'm not going to jump off late because I'm going to regret it. He's going to have 25 touches at minimum. He does catch passes. That's going to be something that's available against JMU. Even if he has 3.8 YPC, 30 carries, okay, I'm still okay with that. He's only 7K. Had Carroll been 8K like he should be, then I think the fade really starts to make sense there. But at 7K, the fade just doesn't make sense to me. And I'm a big matchup DVP guy more than most, but I'm just not worried about Carroll in this matchup. And that's with Ollie Gordon in the lineup as well. I'm just plugging both of those guys in, the 2 JMU values, and then I'm just looking to see where we can pivot and react to some of this injury news. Yep, just a second, Chase. So, and then let's talk about quarterbacks, and then I'll answer the more questions I'm getting in Discord. So aside from Travis and then Dylan Gabriel, who the industry just seems to actually like now, which is great to see, I'm still extremely high on Jordan McLeod. To start the week, McLeod ownership didn't look like it was going to be too high. We're on Thursday, we're of course super high, locking him in. For me, that's the Garrett Green play of last week. There was no wavering for me. If I'm playing only one quarterback, it was Green. And I know his passing day wasn't great, but he scored 3 times on the ground, did more than enough for us at low rostership. McLeod should come in lower owned than he should be, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be like sub 10% or something. As we get closer to that game, I think we're going to see his rostership start to go up a little bit as people see like, hey, these JMU receivers are so cheap, we've got to play them. People's need to have a pairing partner for their players will probably push McLeod's ownership up. I had hoped the 8-1 price tag would keep people off, but that doesn't look like it's going to happen. But he's going to have a very, very big day. So obviously the best quarterback play, or the top quarterback play for me, I should say. There is a myriad of others, and I had mentioned or alluded to on Thursday about there being a group of 4 to 5 that I could really, get behind using in my main. In the slate breakdown, I kind of touched on those, but those of you who aren't quite subs yet, I will kind of go over that now. So in addition to McLeod, Travis, and Gabriel, also like Carson Beck. And I know that's not very imaginative because 3 of those guys are actually, the top 3 most expensive quarterbacks on the slate. But it just kind of falls that way that they're all in place strongly, have great matchups, and are going to be throwing a lot. The 5th guy that would be in my lineup if I'm running 2 quarterbacks would be Kieran Jones. And I also really like the idea of playing Jackson Dart in GPPs, but I'm not using him in my main, but he is kind of a fringe play there. Jones just seems like a fantastic play. A lot of people kind of looking around him for some reason at 6'3", up on the road against Louisville. Maybe that worries people, that matchup, but Louisville is hurting a little bit. The running game, which Louisville has been better against, is what may scare some people because that's where Jones is at his best. He's rushed for 50-plus yards in 3 straight games. Also has a game in which he threw for over 300 yards against Wake, so he has that capability. Just really super cheap, even though this is pretty much the most expensive he's been except for the beginning of the season. He's still a very strong play, a lot of upside there, and I just think that he's going to coast into 20 with ease. How much more over that, we'll see. But Jones is definitely the one, especially with the running backs I want to play, and the most likely to be my super flex quarterback. Because McLeod's locked in, right? So if I'm not going with the 4th running back, then it is going to be Jones that I play, and that's pretty much what I'm going to be sticking to there. All right, and then, yes, confirmation now, Johnny Wilson will not play as of 8:07. 8:07 for those of you not on covered wagon time. No Johnny Wilson for FSU. Still like Jordan Travis. He's been dissecting teams without him. Keon Coleman, obviously a big-time play now. We saw Kyle Morlock make some big grabs last week if you want to take that route, but it's mainly a Travis Coleman duo. Bell's still fine. There's not really anyone else in that group that I'm feeling like we need to play, though. Speaking of which, on the Pittsburgh side, now there's a type of lineup that exists out there where you're going to fall on 4-7 or below for a receiver. And it's real bad if Leon Johnson isn't going to burn his red shirt, or depending on how that shakes out, there's really not a lot to like under there. You do kind of find yourself landing on Bub Means at 4-7, and he's looking more and more appealing as we go here, as we get closer to into the witching hour. Bub Beans, it's the FSU matchup against receivers. It's not great by any means, but he's getting peppered with targets. Christian Ballou, say what you will about him. I like him. I know he's not been very good, but he's getting a ton of passing volume. Not a lot of quality targets coming his way, but there is a massive amount of targets coming Bub Means' way. You just hope that he can catch 3, 4, 5 of those at this price and pay off. So as a last player in, Bub Means at 4-7 is looking like the guy we can go to, depending on how the Oklahoma State receiver injuries break out. All right. What's up, Day? Can you rank running backs for me, please? Yes, Chase. Let's rank the running backs. So I'm going to rank them on both sites because I know I have FanDuel and DraftKings fans alike. And I don't want to ignore one for the other. Trying to include the FanDuel conglomerate here. By the way, CBB coming out on Monday, right? And there's pretty decent contests on DraftKings. Now, FanDuel, I know you don't care about this, but just, I'm going to talk for a second. So FanDuel has released their CBB site, and last year they did just like showdowns for most of the year. They have released an actual slate, but I think there's 3 contests up. So don't know that we're going to be talking about FanDuel college basketball too much this year for those of you who do love FanDuel and want to see it make a comeback. All right, let's rank running backs. So this is the Walter Waddell ranking, not ownership, not other sites, just purely my top 5 guys. Ollie Gordon, again, not very imaginative this slate, I know. Marcus Carroll, who I'm still extremely high on, not letting the industry waiver me at all. This might surprise people, but third is Quinshawn Judkins. The more I have looked at it the last 48 hours, the more I feel like, wow, Judkins is in this Audric Estime position where, remember last week, I was so confused, like, why is no one using Estime? Yeah, he's kind of expensive, but he has a really good matchup. Why is no one using him? And he ended up being 1% owned, which was kind of crazy. Judkins won't be 1% owned. He'll be more, but there's still less than 10% of the industry looking at rostering him in a matchup against Texas A&M that he completely torched last year for 200-plus yards. Obviously, last year is different, but there is no Zach Evans. It is just him. He's got old man Ulysses Bentley as his backup. Judkins is looking at probably 25-plus touches. I would be shocked if he didn't hit 150 combined yardage today at sub 10%. So Judkins is number 3. Number 4 is the man Manuel Michel from Air Force. Army just defensively can't stop anyone. You like your Army to have a pretty strong defense, right? That's something that inspires confidence within the globe. But our Army just doesn't have a very good defense. So Michel in there at 4. And then 5th for me would be Trey Henderson. TreVeyon Henderson is now seeing a major spike in ownership. I'm looking at multiple places, plus just talking to people. I'm seeing very few lineups out there in the single entry and primary builds without Henderson now. He's not ahead of any of the 4 that I listed ahead of him, but he's definitely in my top 5, even above a healthy, and I know he's not, but if Jawar Jordan was healthy, he would still be outside of my top 5. Might be crazy, but have you ever known me to just fall in line with the rest of the industry? No. So I'm not really there with Jordan. Henderson finalizes our top 5. That's on DraftKings. And we got this new creamer. Damn, it's good. All right. So on FanDuel, it's a little different. Because pricing, they've got more games. There is a lot of additional options for us to choose from over on FanDuel, which makes it a little bit murkier, because I know sometimes it gets confusing, like, oh, you like this play a lot, but which side is it? Let's try to be clear. Still Ollie Gordon number 1, because I'm just heat checking. Like, it wouldn't matter even if Ollie Gordon, say Oklahoma State had to play like Notre Dame, for example, whose defense I do fear. I just wouldn't be fading him. I'm just not fading a guy who has over 500 yards in the past couple games. He's just ridiculously good. So you continue to heat check a player like that. So he's number 1. Number 2 on FanDuel, and this might surprise people, is RJ Harvey. It's coming in at 8.4. As much as I love Johnny Richardson, I admit RJ Harvey's getting enough work in the passing game. He's going up against a pretty listless Cincinnati team that he should be able to do some damage against. Which on the other side, we have Corey Kiner at number 3 on my FanDuel ranking RB list at 7.3, same game. And that's because UCF is 2021 Missouri level bad when it comes to defending the rush. So I absolutely love both running backs in that game. No doubt about it. And then you have Jace McClellan at 7.4 for Alabama. Haven't had the need or want to use him a single time this year. But going up against LSU, there's going to be a ton of points scored. This is one of the few times this season I've been interested in Alabama at all, and especially interested in Jace McClellan at reduced prices on both sides, on the night slate for DraftKings as well. And then I would round that out with Dylan Johnson. Even though I'm going to be all over the Washington passing game on both the DK night slate and the FanDuel main slate, Dylan Johnson should have the opportunities in front of him to score multiple times. You might not be able to fit. I mean, we're talking about some really expensive prices, 11.5 for Penix. I know I said I'd always play Jaden Daniels on the slate, but almost 12K. Like, you're just not playing both of them. Rome is over 10, 10K. Julian Polk is 9.7. Like, you're going to have to make some tough decisions here. So that is going to make it difficult. If you can't fit the Huskies passing stack on FanDuel because of those prices, then Dylan Johnson is somebody that you should definitely play. But you got to come away with that one with at least 3 pieces, whether it's 3 Huskies, 2 Huskies, 1 Trojan. Like, you just have to come away with 3 pieces. And I know there's going to be people on the DraftKings night slate with full stacks of that. And they're going to have some nasty value in their lineups, but maybe it'll work. Brett Belicky, I hope I said your name right, brother. I wanted to give it a shot. I felt confident with that one. Favorite QBs today. So just rehash those real quick. Jordan McLeod, number 1, and we're talking about DraftKings here. Kieran Jones, number 2. Jordan Travis, Dylan Gabriel, kind of the group that I'm really working with here. I feel like sticking to that group is going to be a winning optimal move for us. There are other guys outside of the top 5. KJ Jefferson, who, really owes the fantasy industry. He hasn't done a whole hell of a lot this year. Jackson Dart, I think, has major GPP upside. Max Johnson is there's like a blow up game coming from Max Johnson somewhere. Darren Granger is a legendary figure at his program. And you have my man, Alan Bowman, who's going to be, playing that huck it, chuck it football. On FanDuel, it's all about Michael Penix. He is just so good. Makes it really hard to play Jaden Daniels. And I know it was like 2 weeks ago I declared anytime LSU's on the slate, I'm playing Jaden Daniels. But then they had to put LSU and Washington on the slate together and then price them both at almost 12K. If you can find a way to play both, good on you. But that's really tough. Carson Beck's 9.8 on FanDuel. That makes a lot of sense. Kieran Jones is 8.2 on FanDuel. That makes a lot of sense. And if you want kind of a super sneak, the Iowa State-Kansas game later, which is on the FanDuel main, Rocco Becht at 7.5. Watch that game or give yourself some shares of Rocco Becht and get familiar because he's actually here to stay. All right. Who are you running on FanDuel? Kind of just talked about all the FanDuel there for you. Anyway, you can play the JMU versus Georgia State game different than how everyone else does. Yes. So you can play Darren Granger, who no one's going to play. Granger is relying on his mobility most of the time, but he also has he either has or is about to have most passing records and quarterback records at the school of Georgia State. He just tossed 37 pass attempts in their last game. He has several games in the last 5 over 26. So while he's known as a dual threat, heavier on the run side, he's definitely a guy capable of passing. And this JMU secondary is porous. Not quite as bad as Georgia State secondary, but it's pretty damn close. They might be able to neutralize his running a little bit, but that might just mean he rushes for 18 to 20 yards only, but scores twice on the ground and throws 2 touchdowns. And if he does that at 7K, plus what kind of yardage we're talking, maybe 250 to 300, he could really, really separate you from the rest of the field. So him for sure. JMU running back Kalen Black, who has to share work with Tyson Lawton, has to share work with Jordan McLeod, but is very active in the passing game, has 19 receptions for 170 yards. Kind of talked about him a bit in the article as a way to, hey, if you don't want to fall in line with all the chalk in this game, you can play Granger, you can play Black. Yes, Kalen Black's probably only going to get 10 to 12 carries, but he may very well have 5 to 7 targets because he's so active in the passing game. So those 2 players give you an opportunity to be a little different. Play only one of Brown and Elijah Sarrett because, I think a lot of people, myself included, playing both. So maybe you just play one. One has a really good game. One just disappears and has a terrible game, ends up not being optimal at 60%. That's just a huge way for you to do so. There is also the third wide receiver option, Phoenix Sproles, sitting there at 3.7 for James Madison, who no one's using. 5 catches for 21 yards, 6 for 55, 4 for 51, 7 for 40. Like at 3.7, that's pretty decent. He's only had 1 game where he failed to register over 7 fantasy points this season. So that's another way to possibly, sub out one of the, Reggie Elijah duo for Phoenix Sproles. That's one way to do it. On the Georgia State side also, I know there's going to be some Lewis ownership. Obviously, Robert Lewis is the top receiver for them. Dropped down to 5.2 for a receiver who has just as good an opportunity today in Talik Williams. I considered running Williams in my main for a long time last night. Ended up not going there at the moment, but I still might return. But 2 of his last 3 had 6 receptions each, 80+ yards, scored a touchdown. Very wide range of outcome there, but he has a very good matchup, and with so much defensive attention being paid to Robert Lewis, Talik Williams in one-on-one coverage is capable of making the defenses very upset. So that's the way to play it there. Cheapest running back you would use on DraftKings. Well, I had a couple people asking me about Oklahoma running backs this morning, which I don't hate because Oklahoma State's rush defense isn't very good, but it's getting real difficult to pan out with those guys. If we got news that Barnes was like full speed, I would probably look there. Lev Moss has a nice price. He's available again for Texas A&M. Had some questions about him earlier. I'm worried Texas A&M's just going to play Danielson Owens in a triple committee again like they did earlier this year. So I guess that puts us down to the Malachi Thomas, Sibo Flemister area for the cheapest that I would go. Malachi Thomas at 4.5. If Bashul Tutin is out, he's going to get work. Thomas has really never emerged, even though the job's been there for him. He's been kind of stuck in this backup role for his entire career. But, at 4.5, if he puts up another, 80 to 90 yards, maybe a reception or 2, and if he scores, it's a pretty big home run. So I would be looking at him. Sibo Flemister just, got shut out basically by his former team in Notre Dame. But if you go back to the previous 3 games, 10+ touches in each at 4.4, clearly kind of emerging as the top running back option there for Pittsburgh. It's a tough offense at times, but 4.4, 10 to 15 touches, 13 fantasy points, 15 fantasy points. So I think either one of those guys, if you had to use them, I'd be perfectly fine with. I don't think I'd be going any lower. Air Force with Owen Burke, he's kind of getting phased out a little bit. There's really nothing too exciting down there for me. You've got the kid Kanye Udo for Army, but I don't think he's going to find very much success against Air Force. But he does have 15+ carries in each of the last 3 games. But Army's I don't know that Army's even going to have the ball today. I feel like they're going to have the ball for all of 5 minutes. All right, let's switch over to Discord. Which wide receivers play on Louisville? I'm with Jake there. None. I kind of talked about the 2. Jake says, sounds like Tutin is going to play, but they still expect Malachi to get work. Well, that's even worse, right? Because that just is going to be a situation where they're going to cannibalize each other. Not relevant to the DFS slate, but betting opportunities. Wisconsin, 3 running backs available for today against Indiana. Braylon Allen is not one of them in street clothes. Well, all right. Touch on Murphy, 7K on FanDuel. All right, so I guess you're probably really wanting as much Husky Trojan action as you can get there. Malik Murphy at 7K. Certainly don't hate that on FanDuel at 7K. Certainly don't love that either. Kansas State defensively has been pretty damn solid lately. There's been times that I have tried to pick on them or thought, hey, they're not going to have an easy time with this opponent, and they've just completely contained. So obviously Texas is a different animal than what they faced here in the last game or 2, but it's also still Texas, and letting down the population is something that they're definitely known for. Murphy did attempt 25 passes in that last game. 2 touchdowns. I mean, he's cheap, sure, but what are you realistically going to get out of him? 12, maybe 15. So I don't love that. But if you love the rest of your lineup and you're just like to a point where, you know, hey, I've got 5 plays from the Huskies, I got to just throw a cheap quarterback out there, then sure. I'm trying to scroll down and see what else we can possibly do, and there's really nothing. Got Christian Valou, but I don't know, man. I think you might want to probably go up for Murphy. However, if that is a alt 10 plus build, 20 plus build, 50, 150, then sure. But if you're talking from your primary lineup, I don't know that you can play Malik Murphy. I would rather play Rocco Becht. I would be okay playing Rocco Becht in your main lineup on FanDuel. Not sure if that helps you or not there, Jay Craig, but I would definitely do that. In a GPP, is it crazy to play Brown, Surratt, and Sproles in the same lineup? Crazy, no. The likelihood of it being optimal, very minimal. This is going to be a big-time game with lots of points scored, but you're not going to see all 3. Very likely not going to see all 3 go, 5, 85, and a touch. Now, Brown and Elijah have both gone over 100 yards together a couple of times. Sproles is more just that kind of possession guy where he's going to get a lot of kind of easier throws. There is a touchdown equity there with him, but I don't know that he winds up on the optimal with those guys, just because he's probably going to have like 5 to 8 fantasy points. It's probably a this or that situation where you're banking on Brown underperforming and Sproles panning out. They're probably not going to be enough usage for all of them to go off together. But that's only because Kalen Black's involved in the passing game. Cloud's going to have some rushing upside. The Georgia State offense is going to be able to move the ball. There's a few factors in there. I'm getting a lot of, all right, sorry, I'm not trying to be like just hanging out here. A lot of Henderson versus Michelle questions, and that's also probably, I usually like to have a this or that question that I'm also struggling with, so you guys can kind of see inside the mind of where I'm looking, and that is probably the number one like debate for me right now is Travion Henderson versus Manuel Michel, and right now I'm leaning Michel, but I definitely feel with the ownership spike on Henderson that I could be in a lot of trouble here if it doesn't pan out. But that's definitely one that's keeping me up at the moment. And I could easily just drop Judkins down to Henderson too. So I guess it's technically a 2 spots into 3. Trying to figure that out. All right. If not playing 3 JMU receivers, what is the best play at 3,800? And we're really dumpster diving here. There are a few names that I'm interested in. Now, there's one other kind of bit of news that we haven't really talked about too much, and that was with Oklahoma and Jaleel Farouk. Got arrested on Thursday for some traffic stuff. Expired tags, did some other stuff. I probably just search his name before I say the wrong thing. If he's not playing and is being okay, well, I guess he's listed as probable. So, guess he's not. Okay. So, I mean, if he's probable, then that's tough. If he's out, you would think that something like that wouldn't play, but I guess money is a factor. There is a receiver at 3.8 in Jaden Gibson on Oklahoma that would make a ton of sense. I tried to kind of talk about him a few weeks back. Didn't quite work out the way that I wanted, but that was because the emergence of Nick Anderson, Drake Stoops is still around. So Jaden Gibson is somebody to kind of circle there, and at least until we get like, hey, there's Jaleel Farouk on the field in his uniform, pads, practicing, he's going to play, then we can definitely consider Jaden Gibson. Other than that, it's getting real tough down there. You need to find a little bit of more salary, or you're taking some real gambles, which is a taboo word. Kevin Coleman of Louisville, I guess we would go back there. I'm gonna say Kevin Coleman or Jaden Gibson with the word rough, but it's rough. I had to type that on Discord. So I don't know if Woolsey's watching right now, but definitely not ideal. Little talk of Khalid Hicks from Crawdad Corey on Oklahoma. So another running back to throw in the mix there for Oklahoma, and Caleb Hicks, I mean, who hasn't played in 8-9 weeks. Fuck, man. Yeah, that just makes me not really interested in at all in Oklahoma running backs. And like I said, it is a very good matchup. There's a lot of poor rush defenses in the Big 12. If you've got the lineups to burn and you don't mind rotating through Oklahoma running backs, and with the idea that you're probably going to have some dead builds, it's probably the way to do it. All right, I want to talk about some bets that I have here. I have 3 props that I have bet, and then I have that SGP, and the SGP is just the Virginia Tech, which at the kiosk I have a DraftKings sportsbook not far from my house. Dangerous, I know. And it was single betting Virginia Tech +10 or +9.5 in a single game parlay. I asked why I couldn't have it at +10 to the guy at the cage, but he doesn't know shit. So I have that +9.5 and over 48.5 total points at +270. Probably one of my favorite bets of the season, honestly. Even before all this news of Louisville being banged up, I really like that Virginia Tech, 10-point number. That just seems way, way off. Now, that's probably a trap because how often is Vegas way, way off? We've caught them slipping a couple of times, right? But they generally catch us slipping way more, right? That's how those big-ass casinos are built and all them ladies hanging around. But that's one I love. Then I have 3 props here that I'm really, really excited about. Bet all 3, threw them in a parlay in a bunch of different ways. Jarquez Hunter, my number 1 prop, over 81.5 rushing yards. It was -115 online, but I got it at -110 on my ticket, so I got a little bit of better value, I suppose. 81.5 yards against a very soft rush defense that has just been beaten into a pulp by opposing running backs. So to me, it seems like that Hunter number is low. Now, he hasn't done a whole lot this season. He had a very slow start to the season. Didn't put up the breakout year that a lot of people had pegged. Him and Trey Benson were like the 2 most popular picks for breakout years. And both had slow starts, but both are starting to come around here. And Hunter coming off the 144-yard performance against Mississippi State, over 90 yards the game before against Ole Miss. I feel very confident in that one. So that's my first one. Then we get Corey Kiner, over 67.5 rushing yards. Number 1 running back for Cincy. Does have to worry about Emory Jones, but UCF's bottom of the conference rush defense, bottom of all of college football rush defense. Give me that Corey Kiner over 67.5. That's a gift. That's an absolute gift. Barring injury, that is a gift. And then Garrett Green, over 55.5 rushing yards. Love this kid, man. I don't know. BYU they're terrible. They have injuries galore. They can't defend very well this year, especially against the rush. Mobile quarterbacks have just dissected them. It seems like this is a game that Green's going to follow up, his last performance with 3 rushing touchdowns, but this is going to be the yardage game for him, and he's going to have $130 rushing yards. So all 3 of those rushing yard props just feel extremely strong to me. later games there for most, so you have time to check those out, price shop a little bit. One of the nice things on FTN Bets is we do have a odds shopper where you can check out, the different books. There's also a prop shop that you can check this stuff out. You can type someone's name in, and then it'll pull up the various odds that you can find for those props to get yourself that best number. You want to check that out. You want to use that code NIGHTHOOPS to get that 50% off if you're not already. It's pretty much a free roll at 50% off. If you don't like the content, then you don't have to keep it. And, I think that's a pretty nice and fair thing to do and try. But I think you're going to like it. I think you're going to like it, and I think you're going to want to stay, and you're going to want to hang out with us every Saturday here for college football, every Sunday for pro football, and then every day for college basketball, because I haven't been tilting like I used to in years past, but I'm definitely bringing the tilt game back this season. You don't want to miss that. Nobody wants to miss that, I promise you. I can't really help you there, Frenzy. Mac Jones, I don't think so. Watson, I mean, that's a pretty dire straits. I'll say Watson for you there. I always answer one NFL question per show, so that's it. No more. Woolsey, thank you. Well, you're listening. That's that man. Thank you. 4,400 DK running back. And then we'll wrap up here. You can't even get the extra 100 for Malachi. I will say Sebo Flemister or one of the Oklahoma running backs, but I mean, what can you really do with those guys at this point without further news? The nice thing about this slate, at least for the way that I've built, most of the exposure I have is later. Really, aside from Judkins, I'm kind of sitting pretty. I have a lot, Eugene Wilson as well. He's a pretty big play for me, but in my main, I'm finding that I don't have the luxury to keep him in there because of the running backs I want. So as long as Judkins doesn't fall flat, I'm going to be able to see what happens with these morning games and make adjustments here. But just to quickly recap what we're paying attention to, further news on Louisville's O-line and Jordan, which he is going to play, Bashal Tutin for Virginia Tech, Jaleel Farouk on the Oklahoma side, the redshirt status of Leon Johnson, which is very important to me, and I think a lot of you are starting to come around to that and look at hey, is he going to actually play or not? Because if he does, he should get work again. Further note on Leon Johnson, when he transferred in, same time as Alan Bowman, they kind of built instant rapport. First receiver Bowman talked to when he got there, they are buddies, and sometimes you see those kind of connections work out on the field. We see it all the time, actually. So got to pay attention to that and see what happens with Leon Johnson. The biggest debate of the day, Henderson versus Emmanuel Michel. I think getting that right is going to be crucial to the rest of the slate. One is playing now in 9 minutes. One is playing in 2.5 hours. We'll see how that shakes out, how that breaks out. As far as the rest of the content, there will be a write-up for the night slate. A lot of the plays that we like there happen to be on the FanDuel main, so there'll be some kind of overlap there. There will be Discord content for the late night slate, which is the 3-gamer that has UCLA on it, a few other solid groups and teams. I'm just glad it's not a 2-game slate. And then tomorrow night, the CBB version of the Super Show. First slate breakdown starts 9 p.m. PST. It's time, Monday. Let's go. Appreciate all the continued support you guys give the Super Show. Check us out. Get over to FTN Bets. Get over to FTN Daily. Check that out. Use the 50% off. Just do CBB for a month. All I ask is you try it for a month. If you don't like it, you're not a winner, you're not having fun, then you can just boot me to the side. Don't have to continue with your subscription, but I just want you to give us a shot because I really do think you're going to like it. All right, best of luck to everybody today. Thanks very much. Don't do that to me. Don't do that to me, Crawdad Corey, when I'm about to get out of here. Judkins or Carroll. Don't do that to me. I'll say Carroll just because I've been married to that play all week, but I'm playing both. So even though you try to do me like that. Best of luck to everybody today. I'll be in and out of the Discord for a couple of hours. Have to go pick up the vehicle that has been in the shop, but I will be around to either look at my phone or my laptop in some form or fashion. You guys take care. See you tomorrow night for the CBB version of the Super Show. Peace.